I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
Hi, Tuesday.
Dr. David Banner, physician, scientist, searching for a way to tap into the hidden strengths that all humans have. Then an accidental overdose of gamma radiation alters his body chemistry. Now, when David Banner grows angry or enraged, a startling metamorphosis occurs. Yes. We are starting our weird Marvel month. I couldn't really think of a proper name for this, but we are getting back into the world of...
Marvel before Marvel Studios was what I've been calling it.
Okay, we'll go with that. Marvel before Marvel Studios. So we're going to be taking a look all April long of the odd Marvel projects that Marvel tried to do with their various characters. And we are going to be starting with something that we have mentioned before and we have wanted to talk about for a while, and that is the Incredible Hulk TV show. From 1978 to 1982, Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno started the Incredible Hulk TV show, and for a while, that was the most well-known Marvel project, because it was on TV. It was on TV every week. When you thought Marvel Comics, you thought of the Incredible Hulk TV show. You thought of Bill Bixby. You thought of Lou Ferrigno.
Yeah. How much did you watch this show as a kid? Because I watched the crap out of the Incredible Hulk TV series as a kid.
We were infants when this show had ended, but I do remember watching this in reruns. I watched the 60s Batman show in reruns. I watched Wonder Woman with Linda Carter. And so, yeah, I watched reruns of The Incredible Hulk with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno, yeah.
I mean, this show was massive in my house. My parents were big fans of it. I was a big fan of it. I mean, this, like you said, we were infants when it ended, but it immediately went into reruns, and it was like on every channel in syndication,
And it's odd that, for a weekly television show, that this was a lot of people's introduction to the character. It featured none of his trademark comic book villains. No Abomination, no Leader, no Absorbing Man, no Thunderbolt Ross, even though that would have been a great idea. Just a annoying reporter, Jack McGee, that followed him everywhere.
Yeah, except for the fact of, the Hulk. There wasn't really a lot of superhero, supervillain, or any kind of like supernatural, superhuman stuff in there.
But that kind of was the style. I mean, after the 60s Batman show, any project that had superheroes was kind of pulling it away. There was a short-lived Spider-Man TV show that was just Spider-Man fighting regular criminals. The Wonder Woman show did not have any of her comic book villains. It was just her, Steve Trevor, and Germans from the 1940s. So like none of, Cheetah wasn't in that old show, and Doc Ock wasn't in the Spider-Man show stuff. We didn't get any of that. That just wasn't because they were trying to sell this show to adults. They were not trying to sell this show to children like the 60s Batman show was trying to do.
Yeah, but I'm going to say that I love the way that they did this because, of course, we're talking about the 70s and early 80s when they did this. And so you don't have any sort of CGI. You don't have, So, of course, my favorite thing about the Incredible Hulk TV series is how do you make Bill Bixby look like the Incredible Hulk? Well, you hire bodybuilder Lou Ferrigno and paint him green, and you make him the Hulk version of Bruce Banner. Yes, I know he's called David Banner in the series. We'll get to that. So what's really interesting is when they were talking about, and this was ages ago, this was like when what eventually became the Ang Lee Hulk was first in rumors, okay? And like Ang Lee wasn't even attached to it yet. It was just like they're thinking about making an Incredible Hulk feature film. I was talking to friends at the time, and we weren't even thinking about them doing a full CGI Hulk. We were thinking about them doing it in the Lou Ferrigno style. And guess who my personal pick was to be the new like Lou Ferrigno to play the Hulk?
Was it a wrestler?
It was. Can you guess which one?
This is early 2000s. I would say The Rock.
Nope. Brock Lesnar.
He was just starting at that point, too.
He was just starting, but he had, at that time, the physique that looked like, he could have been, paint him green, and he would have been a pretty good, Lou Ferrigno, grr, I am the Hulk,
Rookie Brock Lesnar? Oh, yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, go if you, dear listener, are not familiar with what Brock Lesnar looked like just as he joined WWF WWE right after his Olympics, and like, wow, that's like 30 years ago now, because he was in the 96 Atlanta Olympics where he won his medals, and ironically, I believe that I got to see him in person. I just didn't know who he was.
Yeah, you had talked about same with Kurt Angle at the time too.
Yeah. But the thing is that this was before Batista had really premiered, or else I would have probably said, because he had at the time when he premiered a similar physique. But at the time that they were discussing what eventually became the Ang Lee Hulk, Brock Lesnar had just started debuting, and it was like, oh yeah, that guy would be incredible to take over for Lou Ferrigno, because CGI wasn't quite there yet. Like, seriously, go back and look at the Ang Lee Hulk. You can kind of tell it.
Even at the time, they were talking about animatronics, the same animatronics that they did use for Goro for the Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah. So, and I still hold that might have been the better way to go, because that movie pulled so much from the Incredible Hulk TV show, even trying to recreate the opening scene.
And they would do the same thing in the Edward Norton MCU Hulk movie years later.
Yeah, I mean, this TV series still has, such a big impact, even on the MCU, because, they mixed part of Lou Ferrigno's voice in with the Hulk in Avengers, even.
Yeah, now it's full on Mark Ruffalo, but back then it was like Lou Ferrigno with like an animal sound underneath it.
Yeah. So, the amount of credit that we have to give this show for really bringing Marvel into the, normie culture cannot really be overstated.
Putting Ferrigno as a cameo in the Hulk movies, nice touch. Putting a video clip of Bill Bixby, because he had passed on since then, as a reference.
Bill Bixby sadly died at a really young age. He died at 59, and he died in the early 90s.
Actually, they were going to do another TV movie. I'll come around to it, but yeah, it never happened because of his passing.
Yeah. To kind of get back to this, after they did the TV series and it was over, they did a couple of movies to try to work as backdoor pilots for various other Marvel superheroes.
It was a weird time of the 80s where a lot of reruns of old TV shows were popular enough that they started doing these reunion specials and reunion movies. Brady Bunch, I Dream of Jeannie, Gilligan's Island. Why not The Incredible Hulk? So in 1988, we would get The Incredible Hulk Returns as a TV movie. And that featured Thor. And they were hoping to spin the movie off into a Thor television series. I would love to talk about that, but there's a reason we're doing this movie instead. And of course, 1 year later in 1989, we would get the movie we are talking about, Trial of the Incredible Hulk, which also attempted to be a backdoor pilot for Daredevil. Neither of those two shows happened. And 1 year later, 1990, they would do the third film, Death of the Incredible Hulk. And rather than that be a attempt to spin off a show, they just did a straight Hulk movie because they figured the spin-off gimmick wasn't exactly bringing in the viewers. So let's just do a straight Incredible Hulk movie with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. And while that movie was called Death of the Incredible Hulk, and yeah, that's what happened, there was plan called for a fourth film called Revenge of the Incredible Hulk, and it was going to bring Banner back to life. And it was going to be the introduction of the Smart Hulk into this canon. We would actually get lines and dialogue from Lou Ferrigno as the Hulk. And unfortunately, that didn't happen because at that point, Bill Bixby had gotten so sick that he couldn't really act anymore.
Yeah, I am kind of sad that we're not doing Death of the Incredible Hulk, actually, because the love interest in Death of the Incredible Hulk is an actress I really like because I know her better from the Highlander TV series, where she played one of my favorite characters ever. The actress's name is Elizabeth Grayson, and so yeah, she was Amanda on Highlander, and then she got her own spin-off series called The Raven, and yeah, I adore her. She's really cool. Anyway.
We are doing Trial of the Incredible Hulk specifically because it is the first live-action appearance of Daredevil. As we mentioned last week, Daredevil Born Again Season 2 is going on, and we're both loving the show so far. So we wanted to do something Daredevil-related for this week's episode. So yeah, this is the first live-action appearance of Daredevil. I gotta mention it. I know Kiki doesn't like it when I mention it, but yeah, this is not the first attempt at a live-action Daredevil. 1975, Angela Bowie, because she didn't get the role of Wonder Woman, wanted to do something superhero comic booky, and she looked at her husband David Bowie's comic collection. Oh, this looks cool, and got the rights to do Black Widow and Daredevil as a TV show or a movie or something. Look up the photo shoot, and you will understand why this never happened.
Yeah. I am going to say a couple of things before we get into this particular movie about the TV series because they're kind of important things. One, I already said we'd get back to it. Yes, he is known as David Banner in the TV series. We're going to call him Bruce because that's his freaking name. The stories on why he's called David instead of Bruce in the TV series, there is some debate among various people who worked on the TV show as to why he is David instead of Bruce. One of the producers claimed that he changed the name as a homage to his son, whose name was David. But both Stan Lee and Lou Ferrigno have stated that the real reason was that CBS thought that the name Bruce was too connected with homosexuality.
Well, the last superhero named Bruce that was on TV lived with a young boy.
Well, the thing is as a linguist, I wanted to find out, like, where that idea comes from. And the thing is nobody seems to know. It is a thing. So the fact that somebody at CBS would go like, well, Bruce is a name associated with homosexuality was a thing at the time. However, I cannot find out. I did a lot of research on this, and I cannot find out where anybody knows where this actually started.
I still think it's the Batman connection.
Well, the thing is that Frederick Wortham, who wrote Seduction of the Innocent, we have talked about this before in some of our comic book stuff. He's the guy that led to the creation of the comic books code. He caused a bunch of congressional hearings over whether or not comic books were ruining the youth of the time and stuff. He did have part of his book where he mentioned, like, you know, Bruce Wayne and homosexuality and the name Bruce and connected with homosexuality in his book. So a lot of people think that maybe it started there. Another thing is right about the time the Incredible Hulk TV series was about to be produced and being produced, Johnny Carson had a running gag on his show where whenever he would make jokes about homosexuality, he would use the name Bruce for homosexual men. You know, like when he was doing a skit, there would always be a gay guy named Bruce in it. So some people think that that may have been the popularization of it. There's also a famous Monty Python sketch called The Bruces, where they keep talking about how they don't want homosexuals in their circle, but they're all kind of very effeminate and gay-coded characters, and they're all named Bruce. So some people think that that may have popularized it, and that would have been around the same time in the 70s, you know? But nobody really seems to have a definitive answer for how the name Bruce got connected with homosexuality at this particular time. Now, both Stan Lee and Lou Ferrigno have said that they fought back against it and they thought it was ridiculous to change the character's name.
This was also the same people that tried to change the Hulk's color from green to red.
Yeah, but, you know, it ended up, you know, that he became David Bruce Banner. And really the only way you see the Bruce part of the name is in the pilot episode where you see it on his fake tombstone.
And that tombstone scene is in the intro for the TV show, so you kind of see it.
Well, yeah, but it's really the only time the TV series mentions it specifically, you know.
Which is also funny because Stan Lee actually created a second name for the character. He had forgotten what he named the character, so he had him be called Bob. So he was Robert Bruce Banner in the comics.
Yeah, so that is kind of a big thing about the TV series. So you could tell at the time the people who knew the comic versus people who only watched the TV show, depending on what they thought Banner's first name was. The other thing I wanted to bring up was, you know, you kind of sang a little bit of it at the beginning, but this show has the most iconic piece of music ever written for television connected with it, and it appears at the end of every single episode, and that is the Lonely Man theme.
So much so that they put it in the two live action films.
Yeah, it shows up all throughout this film, including the scene where it introduces Matt Murdock. It almost becomes Matt Murdock's theme in this film.
Yeah.
So without Googling or anything, do you know who wrote the Lonely Man theme?
I do not.
Okay, so it is a man by the name of Joe Harnell. Does the last name Harnell ring any bells for you?
I know Jess Harnell, the voice actor.
Ding, 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 ding. Guess who is the father of Jess Harnell?
Huh, really?
Really, this is the most fascinating thing I found in my research for this episode. The Lonely Man theme, the most iconic piece of television audio in all of history, according to me, and I am, of course, the authority on everything. But yeah, the most iconic piece of television theme song, whatever, was written by Jess Harnell, Wacko Warner himself, his dad. That blew my brain absolutely out of my skull.
I mean, the second Animaniacs voice actor we've talked in about 3 weeks. Three for three if you want to count Frank Welker.
Frank Welker, he is your childhood. But yeah, so when I was researching this, because I wanted to talk about like what an absolute banger of a song the Lonely Man theme is, because it has always been my favorite piece of television, whatever.
It's iconic. It's that image of Bill Bixby hitchhiking down the road over the credits as that piano theme plays.
Yeah, and I mean, and the fact that was Jess Harnell's dad, like, absolutely blew my mind, because I was not expecting that.
We mentioned that this was Marvel's attempt to try to use the popularity of the Hulk TV show to introduce other superheroes. This movie was produced by a studio called New World Pictures. And New World Pictures was founded in the 1970s by Roger Corman, another person we've talked about previously. It's also kind of connected to Marvel. Funny how all of that connects in some ways. So it was his way of trying to do a low budget film studio. New World Pictures is probably, they have a lot of mostly exploitation films. But, you might know some of the movies that they've done. Death Race 2000, Transylvania 69000. They were one of the studios responsible for the Hellraiser franchise. Children of the Corn. They also produced a little TV show. You might have heard of it, called The Wonder Years.
Not ringing any bells. I might have to get by with a little help from my friends.
So yeah, and at one point, New World Pictures bought Marvel Comics. And that was kind of seen as a big thing for Marvel because, oh, hey, we have our own film studio. We can make movies based on our characters. Can you imagine Marvel Comics having their own film studio and making movies of their comics? That's insane. That'll never work.
Sounds crazy.
Yeah. Unfortunately, New World Pictures would kind of go belly up in the 90s. A lot of their stuff got sold off. Most of it, I believe, at some point, 20th Century Fox was an investor in New World at one point because New World had ownership of a couple of TV stations, and Fox wanted to get into the television business. A Fox TV network, 20th Century Fox doing a TV network, that's crazy. What's next? A news network? So Fox being invested in New World Pictures when New World went belly up. A lot of their assets did go to Fox. I'm pretty sure Disney now owns a lot of it since they bought 20th Century. I think the Fox company might still own some of it. According to my research, Shout Factory also owns a lot of New World's properties. In fact, when I saw a trial on Tubi, of all places, it did start with the Shout Factory logo, so they might own this movie now.
Same with, I watched it on Amazon Prime, and it also started with the Shout Factory logo.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure Shout Factory owns this movie now. So yeah, when they were going belly up, Marvel would kind of get out of New World, bought by Toy Biz, and there's a whole nother story there that is not relevant to this movie. So they didn't immediately go to Disney at that point. So we can kind of dive into this movie. Despite it being called Trial of the Incredible Hulk, the Hulk never actually goes on trial. I mean, the image used with this movie is Banner on the witness stand and the Hulk rampaging through a courtroom. That clip goes viral every once in a while, but that's a dream sequence.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and say it. This is another first for Marvel, because not only is this, the first live action portrayal of Daredevil and also Kingpin, I believe. We haven't gotten to that, but yeah. But this is the first on-screen cameo of a one Mr. Stan Lee.
Yeah, he's one of the jurors in that sequence.
He is the foreman, even given where he is sitting. And a funny thing about that, because in that little dream sequence, Banner turns into the Hulk, and the Hulk, starts throwing the bailiff around the room and, breaking the witness stand and everything. But the big set piece of that is he lifts the jury box up. And Stan Lee wanted to do a cameo, and Bill Bixby, who directed this, by the way, I didn't realize that until I turned on the movie and it was like directed by Bill Bixby. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Insisted that Lee had a stunt double for the bit where the jury box lifts up. It was done with hydraulics, so it was really, the whole thing was just, it was basically a theme park ride. And apparently none of the other extras or anything got stunt doubles, because it was like, they're extras, who cares? But apparently Bill Bixby thought that Stan Lee was too important to, risk him getting a hangnail or anything.
I mean, he's the Marvel guy. He probably was still editor at Marvel at this point. Probably, maybe, I'm not sure.
Actually, I think he was. But the thing is it was not really a dangerous stunt. Stan Lee talked about this in a couple of interviews and documentaries and stuff, about how he was like really annoyed that he didn't get to do the stunt, because like I said, it was basically like a kiddie ride at a theme park. If you watch it, like if the Hulk, if Lou Ferrigno wasn't painted green and rampaging through the scene, you'd be like, why is this important? And also, that looks kind of fun. I want to ride that ride. Like, it really just lifts off a couple of inches off the ground, like, and then a couple of actors like hurled themselves out of the jury box, like, oh no, it's like a really bad Star Trek thing where, like, the actors hurl themselves out of chairs to make it look like we're in a battle, But apparently, like, Bill Bixby was not going to risk Stan Lee getting hurt, and, like, would not let him be in the jury box that was rigged up to move. But this was the first time Stan Lee appeared on camera, like, in a cameo as, like, hey, I'm Stan Lee and this is a Marvel thing. Weirdly, the second time he appeared on camera as, like, Stan Lee the Marvel guy was an episode of Muppet Babies.
Yeah, I remember that episode. They were reading their favorite comic strips, newspaper comic strips. And there was a sequence where Rolf and Skeeter both pretend that they're Spider-Man, and then through all this Muppet silliness, Stan Lee himself, who was drawing the comic, thing, hey, stop that!
And he gets sprayed with silly string that is supposed to be spider webbing.
Which, at the time, the OG Muppet Baby show was done by Marvel Animation, so it's still connected to that.
Yeah. But yeah, I just love that this movie started the Stan Lee cameo thing that lasted until his death.
Mm-hmm. So let's get into this movie. So we have, we have our returning cast members from the TV show, just Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. But our supposedly this would be the cast of the Daredevil show had it gone forward. We get Rex Smith as Daredevil, Matt Murdock. And at this point, his claim to fame was the 1983 film version of The Pirates of Penzance with Kevin Kline,
which I watched so often as a kid. That Kevin Kline, Linda Ronstadt version of Pirates. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you probably recognized him when you saw him on screen.
Not at all. I mean, we've talked about my face blindness before, but also, yeah, I hate to say it, but he's kind of a boring actor. We'll get into that.
He's mostly known as a stage actor and a musical theater actor. So he's done a few more movies. He's done the occasional, hey, it's that guy cameos in TV shows. But yeah.
And also, he was a musician, a singer that had a couple of hits in the U.S. His biggest hit was a song called You Take My Breath Away that was made for, or used, I don't know if it was made for it, but it was used in a made-for-TV film. So I think it made it into the top 10 in the U.S. But he was one of those guys that was like, pop idol as a teenager. So he was in all the teen magazines. And then he went and did a lot of stage work. And then he did some television work. And I think he probably thought that this Daredevil thing was going to be his like big breakthrough. Like, oh, if the Daredevil show gets made and it's even half the success as the Incredible Hulk TV show, I got it made. And that didn't happen.
Yeah. So if we're going to have a Daredevil, we need his arch rival, Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, John Rhys Davies, Gimli, Sala, Professor Maximilian Arturo. Those are the three roles I know him for. In my mind, you say John Rhys Davies, those are the three in my head.
Well, yeah. I mean, valid. But I told you off mic that I kept seeing like memes and GIFs and stuff of John Rhys Davies wearing these like cyberpunk sunglasses and stuff, and I never knew the context of them. It's him as Kingpin in this movie. Which, by the way, he's never referred to as Kingpin. He's only called Wilson Fisk in this movie. And for some reason, instead of just giving him like a slick white suit, which would have been awesome and easier, and John Rhys Davies would have like rocked the hell out of that look, they put him all in black and gave him like weird cyberpunk sunglasses for no reason.
And an obsession with cameras. Like opening bit where his goons are making the robbery, he insists that they put cameras everywhere so he can see the robbery happening. He has cameras in all of the rooms of his building so he knows what everyone is doing at all times. And yeah. Also, he does not shave his head for this one. This Kingpin is not bald, which on some level I gotta respect him for, because he is not. I could see him going, I'm not shaving my head for this. I'll do this movie. This probably isn't going to become a TV show. I am not shaving off this for this stupid TV movie.
Yeah, which valid, and I respect that, yeah.
The other two. Now, when I would say Daredevil's associates, now most people would say Foggy Nelson and Karen Page, right?
I mean, I certainly would.
They are not in this. We get Matt's partner in their firm, Krista Klein, played by Nancy Everhard. Again, one of those people that have been in a lot of, hey, it's that person TV shows and stuff. We'll talk more about her in a future episode because I just looked at her filmography, and one of the movies she's in, we're going to be talking about this month. But yeah, she's been in a bunch of movies, a bunch of TV shows. She's that person. I don't know why it's her, but she's also the partner. So let's replace Foggy Nelson and make it a woman. And also the clerk or whatever, Al Petterman, Richard Cummings Jr., another one of those, hey, it's that person. But he's probably best well known for his roles in 30-something and Northern Exposure. So not Foggy and not Karen in this movie.
Yeah.
And for some reason we have I guess I don't know why this character is in this movie, but yeah, we have a kind of a victim. Kingpin specifically refers to as a princess that needs rescuing. Ellie Mendez, played by Marta Dubois, probably best known for her role in Magnum P.I.
Yeah, I mean, I recognized her because She's Ardra from the Star Trek The Next Generation episode Devil's Due, where she plays like sort of a version of the devil. But yeah. That's an interesting episode if you've never seen it. But when I saw her, I was like, she looks familiar. Yeah, that's what I know her from. I watched Magnum PI, but I kind of watched it as like, TV wallpaper.
She played Magnum's wife in the TV show.
Yeah, I paid so little attention to Magnum PI that I didn't even remember he had a wife ever. So, yeah. But I can quote large portions of Devil's Due to you. Anyway, yeah, I told you this off mic, but I do not know why her character is even in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into the film and we talk about everyone else later, but we get into the film. But her whole thing is that after Kingpin's goons get done robbing this jewelry store, they end up on this subway where Miss Menendez is, and they try to physically assault her. It's a word that begins with R and means assault. Fill in the blank there.
Hate that we have to dance around it, but we are now on YouTube, and they will take us down if we say it.
Yeah. So they try to assault her, and Banner kind of, at first reluctantly, he didn't want to get involved, but ultimately his good nature powers through and wards off the guys. But they knock him down, and he transforms into the Hulk on the subway, which kind of starts his whole involvement in this whole thing. As for all of that, why is all of a sudden she so important to this plot? Yeah, she was assaulted on a subway, but they could have just let that go. But Fisk pays her off to say that the Hulk assaulted her and that the two goons saved her, but they didn't even need to do that. And thanks to Murdoch kind of visiting her and getting her to change her story, now she needs to die. What's so important about this young woman that Kingpin would even care?
Yeah, as I told you off mic, like in real life, if the cops even bothered to look into a woman being assaulted on a train, it's kind of not even 50-50 if the cops would bother. If they even bothered to look into it, the questions would be more like, well, Miss Menendez, what were you wearing? Did you wink at him or flirt with him before he approached you? Even if they're worried that, like, maybe them assaulting this woman might bring police attention to them and that might connect them to the bank robbery they were just a part of. They didn't have anything on them, and they were, masked and stuff when they were in the bank. So honestly, it's not really a big deal because we see them hand off all the stuff that they took from the bank to other accomplices before they ever get on the train. And they were masked and like wearing different clothing and stuff like that, So it's
and they
not
had
like
gloves on as well.
Yeah, they had gloves on, so they're not leaving fingerprints. It was a really well-planned bank robbery. Shout out to Kingpin for knowing his job there. So even if you were like, oh, well, if she reports it to the cops are going to look into these guys and they're going to put 2 and 2 together that the guys are the same guys that robbed the bank. Like, there is no real danger there. So why would you do that? All you have to do is just be like, bribe a cop or something. I'm pretty sure Kingpin has like a crooked cop on his payroll.
He does. The chief of police is pretty much telling him all of the cops on the precinct are in his payroll except for him.
I mean, yeah, just be like, hey, I would really like it if you just wouldn't look into that guy. You'll owe me a favor, or I'll owe you a favor or something,
I'll make a heavy donation to your retirement fund.
Yeah.
This whole bank robbery scene at the beginning of the movie, it's very Ocean's 11 in terms of how organized it is. Because you have not only these two guys that walk into the bank, but you've got people who are behind the counter in on it. Like two people who are working at the bank put on masks, and two other people outside the bank are putting on masks. One of his people is dressed as a homeless woman as a distraction. His right-hand man is just picking up the jewels and just walks off. So it's like, this was highly planned out. So like, even if any of those people would have been caught, it wouldn't have mattered. Because like you said, the evidence wasn't there. And since every cop in the city is on his payroll, it wouldn't have mattered. But why would he want this one woman dead? It makes no sense. It doesn't even happen because Fisk's right-hand man falls in love with her. We haven't even talked about him yet. Edgar, played by Nicholas Horman. But I would love to tell you what else this guy has done, but it doesn't have a Wikipedia page.
Yeah. Okay, so it takes a while for this movie to really tell you what Kingpin's, like, grand plan is. And in the end, it's kind of what Kingpin's grand plan is in the, like, Netflix Daredevil TV show and the first season of Daredevil Born Again. Okay? Mostly the Netflix Daredevil TV show.
He literally wants to be the kingpin of crime.
Yeah, he wants to take all of the crime bosses in the city. Okay, that's the thing we have to talk about. Where does Daredevil live? New York. Okay, all of Marvel takes place in New York. We know this. Okay, he is the devil of Hell's Kitchen. Except as soon as Banner gets to the city, I feel like we're talking about the Tick here. But as soon as Banner arrives in this unnamed city that they're in, he moves into an apartment and, like, Fisk's building or whatever has blocked the sunlight that used to get to the building, and the landlord says, yeah, we used to get sun all day long, and before they built that monstrosity, you could even see the mountains from here. And my immediate comment to you was, since when can you see mountains from New York City?
I think this is supposed to be California. It's definitely Vancouver, because this movie was filmed in Vancouver.
Well, I mean, everything in the, 80s and 90s was filmed in Vancouver. If you watched any kind of sci-fi or even most US TV, but especially sci-fi, up through about like 2002, you're watching it being filmed in Vancouver. But yeah,
I mean, there.
It was annoying to me that this was not set in New York. Like, it was actually grating to me that it was just like, yeah, we're gonna go back to the city or whatever,
Maybe if this was filmed in Toronto, they could have doubled that for New York. But yeah, so this is just nameless city. And yeah, Fisk's big plan is, and it's not just the crime bosses of the city, it's the crime bosses of the country. As Daredevil says, oh yeah, there's the crime boss of Chicago, there's the crime boss of LA, there's the crime boss of this city and that city. So he wants to be the kingpin of crime in the country. And the bank robbery was just basically a bribe. He stole all of these diamonds just to butter up the other crime bosses, saying, hey, I could be your leader. Okay, Fisk, but we heard there's this masked guy that's calling himself Daredevil. It's bothering you. Yeah, take care of him first and we'll consider if we want to make you part of the organization. But you know what? Can we talk about the Daredevil costume in this movie?
Please, let's do.
We've mentioned the Netflix show. That first season costume, which is just the black sweatsuit with the do-rag mask on it, is somehow better than what they gave him in this movie. And that all comes from the Frank Miller comic, which was running at the time this movie was being made. So that was a point of reference. At the time this movie was being made, Frank Miller was writing Daredevil. And he gave him that black costume, which is the costume we see here. And it's just this black leotard coverall with this do-rag mask. And they don't even give him the double ears. He's devil. Yeah, he doesn't look like a devil.
Yeah. Also, they do give him, like, I don't know if it's intended to be fake muscle padding, because we do see the guy shirtless. You know, we do see Matt, like, doing some workouts shirtless, and he's in good shape, you know. But when he's got the costume on, you can tell that there's, like, pec and ab padding, and I'm not sure if that's supposed to be, like, armor plating or like fake muscle. Either way, it doesn't look great.
No, no, it doesn't.
And the other thing that you can tell is, you know, to kind of be off-putting to his enemies, and also because he doesn't need to use his eyes, Daredevil's mask always covers his eyes, you know. That is, of course, difficult if you're using a sighted actor to do complex stunts. And I use the word loosely for this movie. We'll get to it. But, you know, if you're using a sighted actor to portray, you know, a blind character, but you still need them to do lots of complicated fight choreography and stuff. But to stay true to the costume, you have to completely cover their eyes. You know, how do you work that? Well, in this movie, it's kind of hard to tell because, you know, it's 1989 camera technology and stuff. It's not super high def film, and they're usually filming him at a distance when he's in the Daredevil costume and not close-ups. But there are a couple of shots where the lighting and the angle of the camera is just right, where you can see that there is a break in the costume just over the eye line for the actor, and the actual eyepiece is like mesh black. It's like a chiffon or something.
So the actor can see through it?
Yeah, when filmed at a distance, it looks like it's just one solid piece. But when the lighting and the camera hits it just right, you can see through it. And you realize that the actor is able to see out of it. It's more like veil material. And so, you know, it's just because it's black, you can't really see into it unless the lighting is correct. So, yeah, the actor was able to see out definitely through that. But the funny thing is, you know, speaking of using sighted actors to portray blind characters, one, like I said, the complicated fight choreography, we joked about it because, you know, the big thing with the Netflix Daredevil series, you know, the now MCU kind of Daredevil, is that, you know, he loves his hallway fight scenes.
The one take hallway fight scene?
Yeah, the quote unquote one take hallway fight scenes, yeah. But the thing is there is something akin to a hallway fight scene in this where Matt and Bruce are sneaking into Kingpin's headquarters. And Bruce isn't hulked out. It's not Daredevil and Hulk, but it's, you know, Daredevil and Bruce getting in. And so Daredevil is doing all the fighting because Bruce is not in Hulk form. They do one kind of fight sequence where Daredevil beats up some goons in a hallway, and it is one of the worst choreographed fight sequence. I have seen YouTube videos, like YouTube sketches with better fight choreography than this, and it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. There is one bit in that I kind of wish that the new Daredevil show would use, which is where there is an automatic door closing on them and they need to get through it, and Daredevil just takes the limp body of one of the goons he just beats up and throws him in to jam the door.
Hell of a doorstop.
Yeah, he just uses one of the goons' body as a doorstop to hold the door open so that him and Bruce can get through. And it's like, okay, that's like, I want to see MCU Matt Murdock do that. You know, like
Yeah.
he just beats up a dude and then throws his body into, like, you know, a door to hold it open so he can get through. That's great.
All right, so like we had mentioned a little bit of it, but it's weird that Banner spends a good portion of this movie out of the movie, in that he's in jail for most of it. Because after the whole incident on the subway, the Hulk runs away and the cops go after him, and by that point he has turned back into Banner, and then they just arrest him because they believe that him and this Green Man are working together in some capacity. Boy, if they only knew.
Yeah.
And that's where Murdoch comes into the story, because he's agreed to take Banner's case pro bono because, oh, hey, yeah, we believe you. We believe that you were there to help this woman getting assaulted. We know you're an innocent man framed for this crime. We're going to represent you free of charge. And yeah, to the point where like Kingpin wants Banner killed. Like, hey, this Menendez woman, kill her. This David Benson, as he goes by in the movie, kill him, and there'll be no problems with when the other crime lords get here. On that, I want to say, like, in almost every episode of the Hulk TV show and the other movies, he has a different fake name to kind of, because he wants everyone to believe that Bruce Banner is dead while he tries to cure himself of the Hulk, and it's always a last name with the letter B, which makes me wonder how many of these B names does he have left at this point, because it's like David Benson, David Bradley, David can't do Banner, dang it. How many of these names we got left? So
he's just inventing new surnames at this point.
Yeah. And he's so nervous about having to testify to clear his name because, no, I can't be on the stand. I change. I can't be on the stand. Which leads to his little nightmare, which causes him not only to Hulk out in his dream, but Hulk out in his cell, and he breaks out.
Yeah, I want to say something, before we get any further in this. I want to say something about the first meeting between Matt and Bruce. I refuse to call him David. His name is Bruce. Anyway, so, Bruce is in jail and Matt comes to him and is like, hey, I'm a lawyer. And he's like, I can't afford you. And he's like, nah, it's pro bono. It's fine. And so they talk about his case and stuff. And then once again, talking about using sighted actors to portray blind characters, I kind of wanted to scream at my TV because they did something which I'm glad that the new Daredevil series does not really do this. But Matt does something that made me want to punch a wall, which is he says to Bruce before he leaves, hey, do you mind if I take a picture of your face? And then starts feeling up all over Bruce's face to quote unquote see what he looks like. And I wanted to scream like, stop doing this. This is not a thing. Okay. Because like, okay, yes. If a blind person is like, in an intimate situation with a person, they might feel their partner's face, but so would a sighted person. It's like intimate touch, but like, we know blind people. We have blind friends. None of our blind friends have ever come up and been like, hey, let me rub my hands all over your face to get a picture of what you look like.
I mean, I'm glad that they don't do that. Like, they didn't do that in like the 2003 Daredevil. It was just stand in the rain so I can use my powers to see what your face looks like.
Well, and also Matt doesn't really need that because they show in the TV series, they kind of show like, he like turns on some music or something and sees the face of the person he's with or whatever, like, it's fine if you want to be like, hey, but like, I get it was 1989 and like, this isn't as like sensitive for disability representation or whatever, but like, can we please stop doing that. Like, tell me you've never met a blind person without telling me you've never met a blind person, you know?
Plays into later when Daredevil is with the Hulk and he puts his hand on his face and it says, "Bruce, you poor soul."
Well, yeah, I mean, he does that too, where like, um, you know, he's in a fight and the Hulk saves him and stuff, and he puts his hands on Hulk's face to be like, and that's when he changes back into Bruce, and then he's like, oh, I get it. You're the same person now, and like you change into the Hulk or whatever. But the thing is like, you could have done the same thing, being like, he used his powers to realize that, because they do have some interesting ways of showing Matt's powers in this,
Yeah, the zoom in on his ear when he's eavesdropping on someone. The one shot of the one dude, they negative the picture to black and green to show him hearing the twirling of the knife from the one dude.
Yeah, and it literally kind of looks like a radar screen, you know? That the way they do it, kind of green, and it looks like pings from a radar screen, which is a cool way of doing it. They zoom in on somebody picking up a business card, and Matt, they enhance the sound, and Matt can hear the scraping of the paper as somebody picks up the business card from a table. There are lots of interesting ways they use to be like, oh, he is using his enhanced senses to make up for his lack of vision. Okay. But the thing is like, that was like the one part of it that really pissed me off, because some of the other stuff that they did that was about the, kind of the way that they treated his blindness and the way people treat disabled people. Like he's standing there trying to overhear a conversation from a distance, and a quote unquote helpful abled person comes along and is like, oh, let me help you onto the elevator, and just like grabs him and shoves him onto an elevator, and like breaks his concentration and like takes him out of the area because they think the poor little blind man needs help. And I'm like, okay, I'm not blind, but I am disabled, and people are like that, and there's like a couple of other points in the movie where they have people trying to be like helpful to Matt over his disability and instead like screwing things up. And I'm like, okay, that's really cool. And then you have this scene in there where it's like Matt's like, oh, let me feel up your face to know what you look like. And I just wanted to scream like, that doesn't happen. Stop doing that.
I mean, again, I don't know how sensitive or accurate it is, but there's that scene towards the beginning of the movie where you see Matt looking out the window of his office, and his partner comes in and saying, "Why are you looking out the window like that?" And he says, "Well, I just like the feel of the sun through the glass," and even puts her hand to the glasses, so she can feel how warm it is. Again, I don't know how accurate that is or how sensitive it is, but I did like that. It has a bit of a appreciation on Matt's part. Even though he can't see the sun, he can still appreciate it.
My favorite bit where, somebody was trying to be nice to him, but just didn't know the correct way to frame it. When he goes, as Matt Murdock in his lawyer capacity to meet Miss Mendez, and she's not looking at him at first, so she doesn't realize he's blind, and then she turns around and she sees his cane, and she sees, and so as they're sitting there talking and getting to know each other, she says something about like, see any good movies lately? And then she kind of cringes like, oh, that was probably like a really bad thing to say or whatever. And then she's like, what about books? Do you like to read books? Like, do you listen to books on tape? Do you prefer Braille? And you can tell that even though she's not really up to date on kind of the most appropriate way to phrase her questions, that she is definitely trying to be both sensitive and interested in his life, And his response is, that he prefers to read nonfiction in Braille. Well, he says with his fingers, because we know that he can just read normal print with his fingers because of his powers. But, the idea is I prefer to read nonfiction in Braille. And then he says, but for things like, poetry and fiction and stuff, there's nothing like the human voice. And I thought that was like a really good way of kind of pointing out that he doesn't just have like one way of taking in information, that different things are for different genres and stuff like that. And I was like, that's a really good way of putting things. Again, I'm not blind. I am disabled. I do have certain things. And my accommodations, the way I use accommodations, do kind of differ based on subtle little things like that,
Even Banner saying, my hand is in front of you, open, or my hand is in front of your chest, to tell Matt what he's doing. And granted, Matt doesn't need that. He even corrects him, like, I know where your hand is. You don't need to tell me, because of his powers. But because he's blind, Banner has taken that extra step.
Yeah, and I like the difference that they show between the people who are trying to be a genuine friend to Matt and learn about his life, his way of experiencing the world, if and when he needs help. Like, notice in that scene, Banner does say, like, my hand is above your chest if you want to take it, and everything. And as soon as Matt says, like, I don't need you telling me that, I know where it is because of my powers. Banner doesn't go like, well, I was just trying to help. He doesn't get defensive or anything. He's just like, okay, cool, and he moves on with life because he trusts that Matt knows his own capabilities,
And I do like throughout the movie, there's sort of a kinship between Murdoch and Banner, mostly because their lives were changed because of radiation. And it's a pretty accurate Daredevil origin. We don't see the origin. It's all told to us. But the origin is pretty comic accurate. Banner's in his house and he only sees one picture on the wall. And it's a boxer. Like, who is this guy? Oh, that's my father. So that's accurate to the story, that his father was a boxer. And they go into his origin of how he was a kid. He saved an old man from getting hit by a truck, and the truck was carrying toxic material. It hit his face, and that's how he got blind. That is accurate. So it's like whatever the toxic material was, whatever that was, enhanced his other senses, which gave him his powers. Again, accurate for most of it anyway. It's changed over the years since this movie came out. Even in the MCU, the implication, it's just that he was taught by Stick to enhance his other senses. We do not get Stick referenced at all, or the hand.
which was in the comics by this point.
Man, could you imagine who? I mean, it wouldn't have been a main star, but if the show had gone on, how they would have handled like Elektra or something.
Yeah. I will say that there are a lot of jokes about the color green in this, because Matt talks, when he's telling his origin story, about how the substance that blinded him was green. And then when someone is telling Matt about the Hulk for the first time, they said that there was like a kind of giant monster guy and he was all green. And then he remembers, oh yeah, Matt's blind, and he goes, do you even have context for the color green? And Matt says, well, I was sighted until I was a teenager, so I understand what green is. And the first thought in my head was, yeah, it was the color of these 4 turtles that were next to the ooze that blinded me.
I love that. No matter how many times we go through it, I love that their origins are connected like that.
Yeah.
And funny thing is, the year after this, we would get that Ninja Turtles movie.
Yeah. I mean, what's so funny is that I'm pretty sure we already had the Ninja Turtles animated series on TV at the time that this was.
This is 89, so that was 87. So yeah.
Yeah.
But I do like that that Banner kind of sees Murdoch as a brother in some regard because of their similar history. You know, they both were changed by radiation. They both were given gifts and abilities. It's just that Murdoch can control his and Banner can't. But it's, it's just part of this origin is kind of also weird because I want to talk a little bit about the police chief. I mentioned him before. The one good cop on the force that seems to be Matt Murdoch's inspiration. Because he says, we're going to take down the crime lords. There's crooked cops on the force. We need someone to take him down. Some sort of crazy daredevil that would dare go up against the criminals. It is a groaning moment. But for a 1980s TV movie about a comic book character, sure, why not?
Yeah.
There is a bit of a Batman aspect to it because, this police chief can contact Daredevil through a phone, a special untraceable cell phone. But apparently, the police chief just has this Daredevil cell phone number and just calls it. Cell phones in 1989, they did exist. And just calling and saying, hey, there's I heard this so-and-so is happening there, and you better get down there and bust these guys. It is interesting by watching this movie to see what, had this Daredevil TV show gone forward, what it could have been. Would it have been good? I don't know. But this whole movie is trying to sell a Daredevil TV show to you. And it seems, they kind of had what the formula was going to be. It was going to be like Matt and his partners trying to help a person out, and then the police chief will call Daredevil about a crime, and then Daredevil will go stop the crime and also either bring a criminal to justice or free an innocent person. That seems to be that would have been the formula of the show. Not saying it would have been bad, but, again, for late 80s, early 90s television,
The thing is that I have watched a lot of backdoor pilots that were successful and backdoor pilots that were unsuccessful, but probably should have been successful, and then backdoor pilots that were not successful and definitely should never have been successful. And the thing I have to say about this is that as a backdoor pilot, this doesn't really work, and I can see why it never got picked up as a series. As a Hulk movie, there's not enough Hulk in it. I mean, in either form, as Banner or as the Hulk. Okay?
He's in jail for half the movie.
And that's not unusual for a backdoor pilot. Okay, let me just put that out there. The fact that Banner/Hulk is not really in this as much is not a huge problem for me, knowing that this was meant to be a backdoor pilot for Daredevil, okay? But the problem is that the Daredevil part of this is not terribly compelling for a few reasons. One, Fisk's plan makes no sense. They hinge it on this woman and her assault, and like we have talked about, there is no real reason for this woman to be at the center of all of this. I mean, maybe you could have had this as an inciting incident and then moved on with some other complication. But the fact that they try to assassinate this woman, the fact that they then kidnap her and hold her hostage and all that kind of stuff, none of this makes any sense. Okay? There's another kind of plot point with Edgar who maybe he's working against Fisk, but maybe not. Maybe he's in love with Ellie. Maybe he's not. I don't know. Okay. It's very confusing and it doesn't really flow well or make sense. A lot of the side characters, especially the villains, their motivations are not even paper thin. They're just non-existent. Okay. It starts out good enough because Fisk pulls off this really incredible bank heist. And you're like, okay, all right, this is kind of the smart kingpin I'm used to. And then he does all this weird stuff with Ellie, and then he like kidnaps her and sets up cameras and stuff to have guys beat up Daredevil on camera. And I get that that was probably like as proof of death to the crime bosses to be like, look, I've taken out Daredevil. But the thing is they don't really prove in the TV series that like Daredevil is any kind of big deal in the city or to the
Like
crime bosses.
there's some graffiti in the subway saying Daredevil rules. Some kids go up to the police chief. Hey, we heard Daredevil was dead. Is that true?
Yeah,
yeah. The crime boss is saying, yeah, we've been hearing you've been having problems with this guy named Daredevil. What are you gonna do?
I mean, I'm not saying that it's nowhere, but I'm saying that like if you look at, and I mean, it's fair to compare the two because it was meant to be a Daredevil TV show. If you look at, the Netflix MCU Daredevil, they do a much better job at, even if they don't show you everything that Daredevil does to save the city, they have all these like, people talking about Daredevil, news reports about Daredevil, newspaper headlines about Daredevil, If he comes up against a goon in an alleyway or whatever, they're like, oh crap, it's Daredevil. Well, I'm here and I gotta fight you anyway because you're not just gonna let me run away.
Yeah, in this movie, he fights like the landlord of the apartment Banner is renting, but he's also a goon, and he kind of takes him down in the most silly way. And instead of going, I ain't telling you nothing, it's like, hey, could you teach me some of those moves?
Yeah, and it's, he does the one guy with the switchblade in the alley. And that guy is kind of like, hey, a rando in an alley, I'm going to take you out. Like, it's not like he goes like, crap, Daredevil. Well, I'm backed against a corner now, so I might as well try to fight my way out of it, Which is kind of what the Disney Plus show would do, or even the Netflix show in the first couple episodes. Like, even when he was less famous, like, he was still famous to the underworld. And in this show, it would be nice to hear, like, not Karen and not Foggy be like, hey, did you read that headline about Daredevil? And then Matt could be something about like, that guy seems kooky or something, like
Daredevil's a myth created by the police. He's not real.
Yeah, or something, or like, oh, they're just making him up to sell papers, like it would be interesting to see that, but it's not. And then the only reason that we know Daredevil is supposed to be a big deal, I guess, is that Fisk is like, behold, I have footage of, me taking out Daredevil. And then 2 seconds later, Daredevil busts into the room and beats up everybody.
Yeah.
I think that's the main reason why this didn't really come across. Because in Incredible Hulk, in the pilot of that, you get the origin story of how Banner becomes the Hulk. But then you also see, like, the Hulk go on a rampage and the world finding out that the Hulk exists. Okay? If you're not going to show in the, backdoor pilot, the origin of Daredevil from the beginning, and you're just going to have him tell Banner his story, and you're going to have him set up as he's already a known entity in the place where he lives, then you need to make that a little more obvious. You need to make him seem like more of a big deal to somebody. If not the general public, then definitely the criminals.
If anything, he comes off as a general annoyance and not a threat.
Yeah, and the thing is Matt Murdock is known for two things. He's known for being an amazing lawyer, which we don't get to see him do because the only time there's a trial is in Banner's dream. And two, he's known for being an incredible fighter and, the man without fear and all that kind of stuff, okay? And that doesn't come across in this because there are very few fight scenes with Daredevil, and the fight choreography in all of them suck.
Because it's TV budget. Whoever they got hired to do the gymnastics stuff, that actually looks pretty good.
Well, yeah, but that's honestly just a guy in a gym doing gymnastics. Like, it's not part of the fight choreo, Like, yeah, it's cool, but it's not like, I hate to say it, but like Jim Cotta had better fight choreo than this.
Yeah. So yeah, the big final fight, I guess you could say, of this is, like you said, it's Daredevil busting in as they're showing this footage of him dying, saying, I ain't dead, and Daredevil coming in and it's kind of weird how they set it up. Like Daredevil tells Bruce to go in through the front door of the building. Like, he can just walk through the front door and they don't do anything to him. Like, it's not, you're an intruder or you on the list. Or he just walks in, walks right past security, like nothing's going on. Meanwhile, Daredevil is climbing in from the top of the building. I guess we just need them all in the same place at the same time. I don't know which is the worst green screen. Is Daredevil rappelling from one building into Fisk's building, or the green screen of Kingpin's escape at the end of the movie?
Yeah. And I'm going to say another thing that a lot of people kind of hated at the time, and I also kind of hate watching this movie, is that, okay, it's the trial of the Incredible Hulk. There's no trial. We've already gotten to that, okay? But also, it's Incredible Hulk and Daredevil teaming up. And there's only one time where Daredevil and the Hulk in Hulk form are on screen together, and it's when the Hulk saves Daredevil from getting his butt kicked in that one scene where Fisk is trying to take out Daredevil. When it gets to, and again, I get it, backdoor pilot for a Daredevil TV series, you want him to be the hero. But when it gets to the final confrontation with Fisk and the other crime bosses, they break in and yeah, Banner's there, but he never hulks out. There is not one point in this movie where you have Hulk and Daredevil side by side as crime-fighting buddies taking out the bad guy,
At least the Hulk and Thor fought side by side in the previous movie.
Yeah, I mean, that one, it was Thor and the Hulk team up and they kick butt. This has no similar scene in it. And you really want that scene. You want Daredevil, you want Matt to turn around and be like, it's okay, Bruce. You can let him out. We need to kick some butt now,
we don't even see a fight between Daredevil and Kingpin. And I don't blame John Rhys Davies for going, I am not doing that.
Even with this crappy fight choreography and John Rhys Davies being in his prime at the time, John Rhys Davies in 1989 could have handled this fight choreography.
Yeah. I understand why, because, we're going to save the real fight for the TV show that's never coming. He runs away, he gets into this. I know this kind of vehicle has a name. I don't remember what this vehicle is called. The type of vehicle. It's one of those, I guess, land boats, because it's the one that are inflated that goes across sand. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I don't know what they're called. Sand boats or something.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But he has his that it flies. It's the Fantastic Car. Fisk has the Fantastic Car that's driven by his little toady Edgar, which, as Edgar said, even though I let the Mendez girl go free, he'll forgive me because I'm the only one he forgives. Why? We don't know. Like, he's the only one that will screw up and then Kingpin will just forgive him. We don't know why. I assume this was going to be answered in the TV show that never happened. But yeah, they get on this land boat that's somehow airworthy and they just go off into the night while Daredevil is saying, "You're finished, Fisk! You're finished!" And it's like, it is very cringe-inducing. Like, it's supposed to be this heroic moment, but it's like he's screaming into the void. Like, you're telling this guy is finished, but he's getting away. He will live to see another day. And then, then Bruce is out of here saying, "Hey, there's a radiation lab in another city. I'm going to actually take responsibility for myself and go over there and see if I can find a cure for myself." And then Daredevil's going to stay there to see if Fisk comes back and he has to protect his city and in a TV show that will never happen. And then the last image is the trademark image of the end of every Incredible Hulk episode. Banner hitchhiking across the country as the Lonely Man theme plays. There are moments in this movie that are good. I think what hurts this movie so much is that it is a backdoor pilot. Like you said, when you describe this movie as Hulk and Daredevil team up, and they don't really do that, I can forgive it being called Trial of the Incredible Hulk and there not be a trial. Because apparently there was never a plan for this to actually have a real trial in it. It was just a clever name because, hey, Daredevil's a lawyer. And they only put that one dream sequence in because they needed something clever to put on the VHS cover. And maybe a clip they can show for the commercials on television to get people interested. But if they were more concerned with this being a actual TV movie and not a pilot, I think it would have been better. But because this is more concerned with being a pilot for a Daredevil show that will never happen, I think that hurts it more, especially if you're doing this on a 1980 TV budget. And we've seen what would happen years later with, the Daredevil show we have now, with that streaming service money and the effects that they can do there, and how good they can make it for, how it looks movie quality versus TV movie of the week quality that this movie is.
Yeah, I would prefer, I understand the idea of a backdoor pilot, but I kind of wish that we would stop doing that. I understand that some things have accidentally led to spin-offs and stuff, but I want them to like never ever do that again. Like, if you want to have a pilot for something, this would have worked better, I think, if it was like a Daredevil TV movie with special guest star, the Incredible Hulk. Like, if you want to bring in like a known entity to boost ratings, maybe, okay, do it that way. Like, Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno are going to show up to, lend credence to this and to let people know that this is connected to that, comic book, whatever, because, the average person who doesn't read comic books might not know or whatever, and then just do a Daredevil story where at some point, for whatever reason, he runs into Banner / the Hulk.
I mean, it's not even the last thing they would do it for Marvel. Echo, The Punisher. Stuff like that. So it's not like it's still not happening.
Yeah, and I mean, just let it ride on the character that you're trying to sell, It's okay if you bring in a previously known character or actor or whatever to boost a little ratings or to help prove, like, this is connected to that. Oh, okay, fine. I get that. But don't make it like a Hulk movie with special guest star Daredevil and then hope you're going to get a Daredevil TV show out of it. Just make a Daredevil movie and then hope you're going to get a Daredevil TV show out of it.
But like I said, they've already tried this with the previous one, which was trying to be a backdoor pilot for a Thor TV show. And this was a backdoor pilot to a Daredevil TV show. Neither worked. So when we're doing the third movie, they decided, yeah, let's just make a Hulk movie. Let's not worry about making a pilot for a TV show that's never going to happen. Let's just do a straight Hulk TV movie and go from there. Like, it could have been worse, because I've heard rumors the third movie was probably going to be like a She-Hulk backdoor pilot, and I'm glad it never got there.
Well, the thing is that She-Hulk was kind of created in comic form because Stan Lee was worried that, because like they had done like $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman, and they were doing lots of stuff like that. And once CBS started producing the Incredible Hulk TV series, apparently there were rumors that CBS was going to try to create a female version of the Hulk, kind of like the Bionic Woman. And that then they would own whatever their female Hulk was, and that she wouldn't be a Marvel thing. She would be a CBS thing. And Stan Lee was like, ha 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 ha, no. And so got Marvel to create the She-Hulk comic so that they would have the rights to female Hulk. It's the story I've heard. I don't know if that's like exactly how it happened, but I can kind of see that was probably.
So let's we've already said our piece, but let's ask the question just for, just to make it official here. Trial of the Incredible Hulk, does it have the magic, Kiki?
Not super amounts. I mean, I'm glad it exists. There are parts of it I find fun and interesting, but it's not going to be my go-to to like sit down and watch over and over.
This could have been a lot worse in terms of Daredevil's first live action appearance. I'm with you. I wish Woody would have more interaction between the Hulk, Lou Ferrigno, and Daredevil, but having Banner and Murdoch working together, it actually works. And I do like that they do build this camaraderie between the two of them as two people who've had their life changes due to radiation. But as a backdoor pilot to a Daredevil show, it doesn't work. No magic. As an Incredible Hulk TV movie, no magic, because there's not enough Hulk in this Hulk movie. And I don't mean Hulk as in Lou Ferrigno. I mean, like I said, for half the movie, Banner is not a factor in this movie. He is behind bars for half this movie. As a Hulk movie, doesn't work. No magic. As a Daredevil pilot, no magic, doesn't work.
I will agree with you that the best part of this movie are the scenes where it's just Murdoch and Banner talking as two guys whose life has been changed by radiation and by getting powers they never asked for. Those parts really do work.
And I do like that Banner sees Murdoch as a brother due to their circumstances. I have a brother in this now. But everything else, no. John Rhys Davies is excellent in anything he's in. So I'm not...
He was let down by the script because this is not Kingpin, it's not Wilson Fisk, it's random crime boss dude.
Yeah.
It's generic crime boss number 52.
Yeah. So, I guess that's all we could say about Trial of the Incredible Hulk. So, as for next week, we are staying in this era, but we're going to a different Marvel hero next week. So, there's a new He-Man and the Masters of the Universe movie that's coming out. I don't know, have you seen the trailer for that yet?
I have.
And do you remember who was in the original He-Man and the Masters of the Universe movie?
I do.
Yeah. Do you mind saying that actor's name?
Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah. Do you know that he was in a Marvel movie?
He was?
Yeah, and we're going to be talking about that next week. The Punisher. Yes, Dolph Lundgren was the first actor to play the Punisher in live action. This is going to be fun and cringe-inducing, probably. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I have never seen this movie in full.
You are in for a treat.
So come back next week for Dolph Lundgren in The Punisher. And we will talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Don't let the magic stop here.
Keep the conversation going. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic.
We are also on Blue Sky, rewatchingthemagic.bsky.social. And new episodes are available at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com and youtube.com/@rewatchingthemagic. Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.
We know that right now, things are tough.
But in the words of Jim Henson, the only way the magic works is by hard work. But hard work can be fun.
Check out our show notes for ways that you can help.